Peace be with you. The biggest tripping point in the life of a Muslim, the factor that makes us fail most often, is perception. And perception depends on which standard we use to judge ourselves in our relationship with God. So unfortunately, a lot of times the standard we use is just simply our existence within our own communities, within our own cultures, and we judge ourselves compared to next people, but to the next guy. But that is not the standard that God uses for us, and we have to be aware of that. And that is the purpose of this video. God tells us in the Quran, and this is one of the scariest verses in the Quran for me, in the second chapter of the Quran, verse 155, "Most surely we will try you with somewhat of fear and hunger and loss of property and lives and fruits, and give good news to the patient." And then in the next verse we're told, "Those who in hardship afflicts them say, surely to God we belong, and to God we shall surely return." But imagine that. So God demands obedience, and then God says, look, I'm going to test you with fear and hunger and loss of property and lives and fruits. And this is the standard I expect you to perform under. So we're not even going to talk about desire right now, because most of us fail even on desire, so there's no need for this because we already failed. So we might be already sitting in a pit of hell because we can't control our desires, and we think that somehow we're doing well because we're Muslims. But look what God says in the Quran. Let's talk about fear, or let's talk about hunger first. So for hunger, as an example for hunger, I will use an excerpt of a letter that was written by a physician in 1933 Ukraine during a famine that they had in that country. And she wrote, "Survival was a moral as well as a physical struggle." And she wrote this in June of 1933. She wrote that she had not yet become a cannibal, but was not sure that I shall not be one by the time my letter reaches you. The good people died first. Those who refused to steal or to prostitute themselves died. Those who gave food to others died. Those who refused to eat corpses died. Those who refused to kill their fellow man died. Parents who resisted cannibalism died before their children did. You know who died first? Muslims. Under these conditions, how many of us are going to stay Muslims? And what does God expect from us under these conditions? Consider the 90th chapter of the Quran, verses 4 through 18, and this is a surah called Al-Balad. "Certainly we have created a man to struggle. Does he think that no one has power over him? He will say, I have wasted vast wealth. Does he think no one sees him? Have we not given him 2 eyes, a tongue, and 2 lips, and pointed out to him 2 clear paths? But he will not attempt the uphill path. And what will make you know what the uphill path is? It is setting free of a slave, and giving food in a time of famine, in a time of hunger, what I just described, to an orphan who is related, and a poor man lying in the dust. Then he is of those who believe and urge each other to patience and urge each other to compassion. These are the people of the right hand." So the question is here, we as people, in order to live another day, are we going to withhold food from a dying orphan or from a poor man lying in the dust? You realize the intensity of the test. This is the reality of life. You know, we are so comfortable, a lot of us, some people are suffering, I'm not, but a lot of us are so comfortable that we don't even understand that we are nowhere near where we need to be because we are not judging ourselves by the correct standard. Let's talk a little bit about fear. You know, yeah, desire is a powerful emotion, but it's not more powerful than fear. Even the companions that were with Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, some of them failed out of fear. They failed, and they became munafiqs. They became hypocrites. So when we are talking about ourselves, how are we going to act when fear hits? In the Surah Al-Azhab, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, but in the 33rd chapter of the Quran, verses 10 to 12, we're told what happened to these people from fear. "O you who believe, call to mind the favor of God when there came down upon you forces, so we sent against them a strong wind and forces that you did not see. And God is seeing what you do. When they came upon you from above you and from below you, and when the eyes turned dull and the hearts rose up to the throats, they're afraid. You began to think diverse thoughts about God out of fear. There, the believers, mutminun, were tried, and they were shaken with severe shaking, and the hypocrites and those in whose hearts was a disease began to say, God and his messenger did not promise, but only to deceive. You know how easy it is to fall in that mindset when fear hits? And this is the reality of life. This is what is expected of Muslims, and this is the standard by which we will be judged. So there is a real sense of urgency for Muslims to wake up and actually be Muslims, because time is ticking. We're going to die. And then 3 verses later in the Quran, we're told, and certainly they had made a deal with God before that they would not turn their backs, and God's deal shall be inquired of. So God will ask him about this. You said you believed in God, and you said this is what you're going to do, and did you do it? No, you did not do it. Right? Their judgment is with God, but this is a warning that has to be heeded. This is the standard. If we can't control desire, how will we control fear? How will we control hunger? We don't even have a frame of reference what it feels like to be starving to death other than writings of the people before us. How do we know how we're going to respond in this instance? How many of us will steal? How many of us will eat corpses? How many of us will become cannibals? How many of us will sell our souls, eternal souls, just to live another day of this suffering, knowing we're going to die anyways? And this is the reality a lot of Muslims are ignoring. I might be one of them. I don't even know. I have no idea how I would fare in this instance, but I am certainly afraid of it because even desire is difficult. It's all a test, and we have to be aware of it. We have to judge ourselves by the correct standard. And that's it. Peace be with you.